and we can look at the library.newFolder method. Now here you can see that we can actually pass in a folder path, which is a string, which is the name of the folder. So what we can do is come back to these new folder calls, and then just in single quotes, we're just going to put in the names of those folders again. So I want one called graphics. Come to the next one. I want a folder called sounds. I want a folder called video. And then one called movie clips. Okay, so now in our JSFL string, we're setting the first layer of the timeline, giving it a name of actions, then we're locking it. Then we're creating 4 new folders, one called graphics, sounds, video, and movie clips. And then we're calling the execute function, which is actually going to execute that JSFL. Okay, so now it's time for us to be able to test what we've done so far. Now I've saved this movie setup.fla to my desktop. So I'm just going to Command Enter just to test the SWF. So right now, obviously, when I click this, it's not going to do anything because it's just a regular SWF. It's not a part. It's not actually a panel yet inside of Flash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this. Now we need to put the generated SWF, so this movie setup.swif, in the proper folder so that Flash can recognize it as a panel. So this is going to be different on Windows or Mac, but on the Mac side, you want to go to your user folder, then into Library, Application Support, Adobe, Flash CS3, EN or whatever language, Configuration, and then there's a folder called Windows SWF. Now here you can see there's that event generator SWF from my other custom panel that I made. So what we want to do is we just want to drag that movie setup SWF that I have on the desktop into that folder. Now on Windows, the path is obviously going to be different, but it's essentially would be something along the lines of C, documents and settings, all users, application data, Adobe, Flash CS3, but it's essentially in your documents and settings, and then follow pretty much the same path. So I'm sure you'll be able to find that folder. Okay, so now that I have it in this folder, now I'm going to have to restart Flash in order for it to see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit Flash, and I'm going to relaunch it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now just to test it out is just create a new ActionScript 3 document. So again, this is the scenario where this panel is going to come in handy. Now to get to the panel, I'm going to go to the Window menu, Other Panels, and now we can see here's my Event Generator panel, and now we see one for Movie Setup. So I'm going to click that, and we can see now here's my custom panel called Movie Setup. So now when I press this button, it's just going to execute that JSFL command, and it should do exactly what we told it to do. So I'm going to click that, and you can see it's now renamed the first layer to actions, it's locked it, and if we look over in the library, it's gone ahead and created those 4 new folders. So again, right there, that saves a lot of time, you know, from having to do that yourself. But now let's go back and make a couple more changes so we can modify the stage size and also the frame rate. So I'm going to close the panel, and I'm going to open up my movie setup.fla file again, and I'm going to go ahead and close this one. Okay, so now let's add some more JSFL commands in there. So I'm going to open up the Actions panel again. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Help and go back to Extending Flash, go back to Objects. So now we want to change, let's start with the frame rate of my FLA. So I'm going to look under Document, And again, a lot of this is just having to look through the documentation here to find out what capabilities you have. But if I look under document, which controls things obviously about my Flash document, I come down here and I see frame rate. If I click on that, we can see down under the example that this is how I set the frame rate for my FLA. So I'm going to copy this code, and then I'm going to come at the end of my JSFL string, and I'm going to paste that in. Oops, and it didn't take. So let's copy that and try that again. Okay, there we go. So fl.getDocumentDom.framerate, and I always set my frame rate to 30, so I'm going to set the frame rate to 30 here. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to set the width and height of my stage to the size that I usually use when I'm first starting out a document. So again, I'm going to go back to help, and I'm going to come down here so I can see document. There's a document.height property, and I can see now that by this example, this is how I resize the stage. So again, I'm going to copy that, come after the frame rate, and I'm going to leave the height at 400. And then I'm assuming here that there's going to be a property called width, which there is. And I'm going to set the width to 600. Now, things like the frame rate and document width and height can actually be set as a default. But again, I just want to show you how you can set these through the JSFL API. Okay, so I'm going to save this now, and I'm going to regenerate my Swift file. So again, this is still living on the desktop. And let's hide the Actions panel. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my Windows Swift folder. So I've left it open. And now I'm just going to drag that movie setup Swift from the desktop, and I'm going to overwrite that file. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new Flash document, ActionScript 3. Now I'm going to open up the panel again. I'm going to go to Other Panels, Movie Setup. Now, if you hadn't closed this panel, you obviously wouldn't see the changes. So if you've updated the panel, the way in which you see the changes is you need to actually close the panel and then reopen it again. Okay, so now here I have my Setup Movie button, and I have just a blank FLA that I just created. So now when I click this single button, it should rename the first layer to Actions, lock it, create those 4 folders in the library, set the frame rate to 30 frames per second, and set the document to 600 by 400. So let's press it, and we can see it's done all of those things. So I have my Actions panel renamed and locked, 600 by 400, 30 frames per second, and I have my library folder structure already created. So now I can, drag this in. You could have just a panel group just with your custom panels. This could be something. This could be part of a larger kind of quick actions panel that allowed you to automate a lot of tasks. Okay, so if you just want to use the panel for your own use, there's nothing else that you have to do. You can. It's easy just to copy your Swift into this Windows Swift directory, and you're good to go. But what if you actually, like this event generator, I thought that would be useful for other people to use. So I actually want to package that as an extension, that I can put on my website. People can download it, just double click the extension, and it sets it up perfectly. So I'll show you how to do that now. So hit Command Enter. I'm going to generate the Swift, and I'm just going to hide Flash. So the way that